Everybody's got a price, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a pod, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo, and we are back for another episode of Everybody's Got a Pod. But this week we had to call a little audible. On the usual day that we record, Ted was feeling under the weather, so we had to pivot. We will be back next week with the continuation of our conversation about Georgia Championship Wrestling in 1984. But for right now, we're taking a look at more of the YouTube exclusive videos that we've put up over on that channel. This week, we're covering a variety of topics, from the return of Randy Orton and CM Punk to Mick Foley in the Hell in a Cell match in 1998 to information about Ted's biological father. Please remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get these exclusive videos when they come out on Mondays, and so you can enjoy all the content provided there, not just by Ted, but also by his friend and fellow WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan. It's youtube.com/@everybody'sgotapod. I hope you guys enjoy this compilation episode, and we'll see you next week with some more content from the $1 Million Man. I'd love to hear your take on a few other wrestlers who fans argue about all the time as to whether or not they belong in the Hall of Fame. Just real quick, let's start with the Bushwhackers. Do you think they belong there?
If you're going to go technical wrestling ability and what have you, like that, was he? Were they ever a huge headlining star? No, but they were always there. And as the Bushwhackers, they got over. I mean, and they got over big for the position they were in. It's kind of like with wrestling. It's yeah, I can see where it's debatable because you all Bushwhackers, a couple of crazy guys that ran around doing this all the time. But when they got in the ring, brother, they were very good workers. So
they were absolutely and captivating and memorable. Like I certainly
absolutely
remember them.
Yeah.
A couple more names that I'd love to hear your take on. A friend of yours, Tito Santana, is another name that people debate a lot.
Oh gosh, I absolutely wholeheartedly believe that Tito, should be in the Hall of Fame because he's another one of those guys. I mean, a great athlete. I mean, Tito is one of those guys. Tito's real name was Merced Solis, and he and myself, Tully Blanchard, we were all on the same football team, West Texas State. We played football together. Has nothing to do with wrestling, but Tito, when he got into business, he was good. He, again, another guy, good, solid, hardworking guy. I think, was he a tag team champion?
I think so. With Strike Force, I think, and then I believe that he was Intercontinental Champion as well.
Yeah, and but yeah, I think if you would ask, 90% of the wrestlers whether he deserves to be there or not, they'd say yes, absolutely.
I think so too, and I believe he has the winningest record ever in WWE history or something. There was some factoid like that I heard about.
That.
Yeah, I think so. All right,
course,
last one.
Wins and losses really don't mean crap.
Not exactly the same as like a football winning record.
Yeah.
Last one, and this is one that fans kind of debate about the most from what I've heard. Coco Beware. Do you feel like he's a Hall of Famer, Ted?
Oh gosh, Coco's another one of those guys. Great guy. Maybe borderline. But again, you have to understand. It's kind of like it's like a football team. There's 11 different positions, and there's a quarterback, there's the backfield, and what have you. And it's like, you go, okay, this running back or this quarterback was inducted to the Hall of Fame. Oh yeah, why of course, like, well then you go down and say, well, what about this guy? He was a defensive tackle or an offensive tackle. Well, they don't ever get much press. Well, some guys don't get a lot of press, but they're good. They're very good at their position. And with that being said, Coco Beware is one of those guys who I can't think of anybody that would say you couldn't have a match with him. He's another guy who could work with anybody. And, not the greatest gimmick in the world, but I mean, again, it's all positioning. It's like, it's not always going to be, and again, in an entertainment, I mean, okay, if you're looking at wrestling as a sport, you mean, wait a minute. I mean, but it's sports entertainment. How, it's like, okay, let's go to the Oscars. There's a lot of people that I've seen walk across that stage that got an Oscar, and I would be kind of surprised. But then once I saw what everybody was saying about them, I you know what I'm saying? I got it. Again, Coco's another one of those guys. He's not going to be on the top 10 list, but hey, I'm glad he's there.
Dad, I think that's perfectly said. Like the way the analogies that you made there were perfect because
Yeah.
look, I don't think that we can look at wrestling the way that we would look at like the NFL Hall of Fame, where we say like, well, how many championships did that guy win? How many touchdowns did he pass for? Like that kind of stuff is what people use to judge whether or not somebody belongs in a professional sports Hall of Fame. When it comes to wrestling, I think it can be more about your contributions to the business.
Exactly.
And what you brought to the table in your role, and guys like the ones we've named here brought a lot. So I'm with you.
Well, just again, like in the Oscars, there are a lot of people that get Oscars that were never in front of the camera, that worked behind the camera.
Yep.
And so, it's like, what was your role? Did you play your role well? Again, Coco Beware would be one of those guys. He was never a main eventer. He was, opening match, middle of the card, and he was very good at what he was there for. So.
Perfectly said, Ted. Now, recently on my podcast, The Snake Pit with Jake Roberts, we talked about celebrities in the WWE Hall of Fame. And actually today, as we're recording this, Jim Duggan, I saw on his social media, just posted a picture of himself along with WWE Hall of Famer Pete Rose. And so it's another subject that people debate about a lot, whether or not celebrities belong in the Hall of Fame. Ted, where are you at when it comes to the WWE, including celebrities alongside wrestlers?
I guess the first question I would have is, what did Pete Rose ever contribute to wrestling?
He got beat up by Kane a couple times at WrestleMania.
Okay. But other than that, if there was some significant reason, I would say, okay, but it's the pro wrestling. It's the, pro wrestling Hall of Fame. It's not the baseball Hall of Fame. It's not, it's kind of like, it's like take me or some other wrestler and induct us into the professional baseball Hall of Fame. For what?
Right.
And again, there's my answer. What the hell is Pete Rose doing in a wrestling Hall of Fame? What major contribution did he make? Did the contribution that he make, was it significant? I can't remember.
And that speaks volumes. Like if you can't remember, this guy is a huge baseball icon and him being involved in the WWF, I mean, that tells you something. Jake was like, absolutely not. Celebrities have no place in the Hall of Fame. Ironically, he was like, I think it's, and Jake was like, I think it's kind of cool that Pete Rose is in there because he can't get into the Baseball Hall of Fame, so we welcome him into ours. He was like, but I was like, what about a guy like Andy Kaufman? Do you think he belongs? And Jake was like, nope. I was like, how about Mr. T? He was at the first two WrestleManias. Jake is like, nope. so
Man,
so
I agree with Jake. No,
yeah, he's with you. And look, it's, and I said this to Jake. Imagine being a guy who worked in wrestling for 20 years, blood, sweat, tears, broken bones, beat up on the road, making shit money sometimes, but still doing it for love of the game. And
and doing it well.
doing it well, and then Mr. T gets in there before you do. It would be very offensive.
I absolutely agree. And so, and oftentimes, like, the WWE Hall of Fame, a lot of people say, well, it's more of the Vince McMahon Hall of Fame. It's, who does Vince want in there? I mean, because it certainly isn't voted on by any of us.
Which really is, I mean, that's a really good point, Ted. Like, they should have a panel of Hall of Famers who cast votes.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's maybe someday down the line that'll be the reality, but I wish it was now. Randy Orton has made his return to WWE after being gone since May of 2022. Ted, he is 43 years old, and he underwent fusion surgery on his lower back and was apparently even advised by some doctors not to return. Ted, I know that you got to see a lot of Randy early in his career, and certainly when he was part of Legacy with Ted Jr. What do you think of his work and his decision to return?
Well, I thought Randy was great. I really did. I mean, again, not all, but most guys like myself who grew up in this business and whose fathers were wrestlers, they do good. They do good because they've lived it all their life. And again, for those like, and Randy would be one of those because, his dad and I wrestled at about the same time. And yeah, and I don't know though, but I mean, it's kind of like, and how did you say he is now?
He is 43 years old, and yeah, it's, look, when he left in May of 2022, he was still at the top of his game. He had that back fusion surgery, so who knows if he's gonna, be the same old Randy Orton. But I mean,
Yeah.
even Randy Orton at whatever 60% is still probably going to be one of the better wrestlers out there, right?
Yeah, I would agree. But it's like I just made a promise to myself way back when I started this that I was not going to stay too long. That I was not going to, I don't want to be one of those guys showing up on TV, wearing wrestling tights and everybody's going, put a shirt on too, I'm like, and we both know a couple guys that need to put the shirt on, right?
There's a couple out there.
Yeah. Great guys, great wrestlers, but, and so anyway, my dad's passing made me promise myself that I wouldn't stay too long. And I actually, and I was still in pretty good shape. And I guess I would think Randy is too.
Oh, yeah.
When I was turning 40. But I had promised myself that I wouldn't, I was, so I said, active wrestler's done. And then I went from being a wrestler, in-ring wrestler, to a ringside manager. I was still in the business. I was still very, very much a part of what was going on, but in a totally new capacity.
Now, I mean, Randy's had a really long career now. He's been in wrestling for 20 years, as a matter of fact. And I mean, if you were advising him, would you advise him to hang it up now, or do you think like, okay, modern medicine, keep going, kid? What are your thoughts?
I would probably have to talk to him personally and see just what's gone wrong with him and and how long he wants to continue and that type of thing. But but having had back surgery, they must have done some kind of fusion or something. So you want to go in there and start taking back bumps again?
Yeah,
that doesn't make sense. I don't know. Again, I would have to talk to Randy, and of course, and to know, what his doctors have said and what the severity of his back issues are. So
Yeah, I know that it was a fusion, and like I said, though, I mean, 43 now in pro wrestling. That's like, it's nothing. You've got guys much older, still active and still working at a pretty high level. But yeah, I mean, certainly something for him to think about whenever it comes to his future health and how he's going to be moving around when he's in his 60s and 70s.
yeah.
But I mean, overall, Ted, Randy Orton, his career, like, what do you think has made him connect so well with fans over the years?
Again, the one thing that you can't teach anybody, and I don't care whether you're a wrestler, a movie star, in the entertainment industry, you have to have charisma. And if you have charisma, your charisma can be enhanced, if you know what I mean. It's like you can help somebody, pour it on a little more. But you can't teach anybody charisma. You either have it or you don't. It's the spark. I've seen guys go out and have technically a good match. It's like they didn't do anything really wrong, but the match was flat because they're not doing anything as a personality to excite the crowd. If you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard. Charisma's hard to explain, but I mean, if you know it, you got it.
I've heard a lot of people refer to Brad Armstrong in that way, where they're like, God, just incredible, perfect technical wrestler, great shape, great look, but like on the mic, he just didn't really have that kind of pull people in type charisma on the microphone,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's correct. And you'll notice it too. A lot of times, the purpose of a manager is you got a guy that's really good, looks good, his work is really good. But again, you put that microphone in front of him and and so a lot of times a manager is given to somebody to add that charisma, to be the spokesperson for that person.
Well, Randy certainly never needed it. He's got every single tool out there. He's great in the ring, great look, great shape, a great finish. Yeah, great promo. So I'm glad to see he's back. But hopefully he'll can weigh all of his options very seriously before stepping back into the ring after a surgery like that, right?
Yeah. And one of the guys, I mean, Pat Patterson.
Yep.
Everybody knew Pat was gay. Pat was one of the brightest guys. I mean, he was Vince's right-hand man for years. And thank goodness he was, because he was really smart and really, it's kind of like, what was he? He would even joke with me about it. When I was wrestling him one night, this was back when I first went to New York, not in 87.
79.
Yeah. And when, as I was going out, he was coming in. Right. And so, and of course I had seen him, he and, trying to think of the guy he was tagged with,
back in the day, it was Ray Stevens.
Yeah. He and Ray Stevens are an unbelievable tag team. Anyway. And so, I said, well, what are we going to do tonight, Pat? So he kind of gave me the thing about what this would be the finish with. And he says, you got it? And I said, got it. Great. He says, okay, just remember one more thing. If I get behind you, you're fucked. I looked at him. He just broke up laughing. Oh God.
Oh my gosh. Amazing.
I mean, yeah. When you can laugh about it. I mean, and that's just it. It's like, he was my friend. I don't know if you showed this, or if you had a clip or something, but I saw a clip of Vince walking
with a cane. Yes, that was online. It was a big UFC fight. He was there with The Undertaker, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, why is Vince McMahon using a cane?" And it's like, do we know how old he is? He's in his 70s now, you know?
Well, yeah, hey, he's like almost 80.
Yes, yes.
But and okay, and then there's for sure there's a lot of 80-year-olds that can't walk very well. But Vince took such good care of himself. I mean, Vince was, I mean, he was a fanatic about staying in shape and lifting weights. I mean, the gym in the office in Stanford. I mean, it's got every imaginable machine you could think of. I mean, he could actually open it up as a gym to the public, but it's just for just for him and for his people.
And here's the other element that I think a lot of people aren't really thinking about is you brought up that he was a workout fanatic, which is great, and it'll keep you in great shape. However, to pack on all the muscle that Vince McMahon packed on, that takes a huge strain on your body. You're lifting a lot of really heavy weights, a lot of repetition, and stuff like that breaks down joints. And if you have joints that have been worn on and worked out for years and years and years, by the time you get into your 70s and close to your 80s, you're probably going to be having to use a cane to get around.
Yeah. So maybe I should just stick to what my heart doctor told me and keep walking.
I don't
Keep,
think you need to be out there bench pressing anymore, Ted. There's probably no reason for it.
know,
Well,
I guess there's got to be a line there. So I don't think if I just went and didn't and I have no reason to want to impress anybody anymore with, oh man, look how much I can bench press. Those days are way gone. And I never could out bench press anybody anyway. My thing is always was lightweight and a lot of reps.
yep.
And that's a way to get fit. But when you start, taking all that protein and all that stuff and pushing all that heavy iron, like you said, yeah, you pack on a lot of muscle, but it's a strain.
Have you ever seen the Hell in a Cell match with Mick Foley where he went through the cell and the chair hit him in the face and his tooth came through his lip? Are you familiar with this?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've seen like the footage of Mick getting thrown off the cell through the table and then the crazy bump through the cage. I mean, again, you're Amarillo, Terry Funk trained you. Terry Funk was actually there for that match. You learned your craft from guys like Terry Funk and your father and this old school mentality. When you're seeing what Mick Foley was doing in this Hell in a Cell match, I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, again, that's it. It's wild, crazy stuff, but he's selling it.
He had to.
That, I mean, yeah, obviously, I mean, sometimes you really get hurt, but I mean, Mick, Mick has been, Mick has been three different characters, but the reason that he gets over, regardless of what character it is because he knows how to sell. And he knows how to have a match with somebody else and make them sell.
Did you feel like Mick doing that? I mean, spectacular spots, unbelievable. I mean, like, it set the bar for a Hell in a Cell that really hasn't been matched to this day. Like, how do you follow it in a Hell in a Cell match? Do you feel like something like that hurts the business, though? Mick taking those gigantic, terrifying, very real bumps?
No, only as long as you do, if Mick took a horrible, like an enormous, one of those, it's like, what are you looking for? You're looking for that holy shit moment where everybody goes, holy shit, I can't believe that happened. Oh my gosh. Well, those are great as long as they're sold. Now, if Mick had taken a bump like that and bounced up like nothing happened, it's worthless. it
Right.
means zero. You know, I was a 49er fan at one time too, because one of the guys that I played college football with, his name was John Ayers, and he was an offensive tackle for us, and at West Texas State. He got drafted by the 49ers, and he was a starter. He was number 68, and he was there for the dynasty run. He had 3 Super Bowl rings,
Wow.
and God bless him, he passed away way too young, way too young. But yeah, for that period of time, I was a huge 49er fan because I had a vested interest in the, you know what I mean. You
Gotta
yeah.
be cool to see your buddy going out there winning
Yeah.
Super Bowls with Joe Montana and those guys.
Yeah. I never stopped being a Cowboy fan, and I was like, oh, holy crap. What if it's the 49ers and the Cowboys? Another funny story. So we wrestled out in San Francisco all the time, and we stayed they call it the Airport Marriott. And it was close to the airport, and you could, it's right on the bay, and you could see the stadium lights from our hotel.
Wow.
Where they played. Okay, well, so now my buddy John Ayers had left the 49ers by that time. I can't remember, they traded him to somebody, and then he was out. But I remember I came down into the hotel lobby, and there's all these great big guys in the lobby. I mean, and I said, gosh, what's this? Where'd all these monsters come from? And one of the guys at the desk said, that's the 49ers. He says they check them in. They spend the night here at the hotel and do all their, they have all their team meetings and stuff, the night before a game, and I think that's probably the coaches making sure that they don't go out and get in trouble, keep them all together. So anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. So this was a Marriott, and I said, like, I was walking out of the building. So a lot of hotels, there's an outer door, and then there's a little what do you call it, a foyer there, a little area, and
Right.
then there's another door. So you walk through one door, and then you walk through one more door to get into the lobby. So I walked through the first door going out, and this guy walks through the other door coming in, and I look up and I went, oh my gosh, Joe Montana.
How about
There he
that?
was. And I said, oh my gosh, Joe Montana. He said, holy shit, it's the $1 Million Man. And I said, I know why I know you. How do you know me? He says, are you kidding? He said, when John was with us, we knew the whole story, his relationship with the Funks, and we used to watch you guys wrestle, while we were in the locker room, like, I mean, getting dressed out for a game, they would have wrestling on. And so I thought that was pretty funny, but anyway.
Man, it gotta be.
I wish I'll have to bring it and show it. I've got a picture signed by Joe Montana. So,
Oh man, cool. Yes, please send me a picture of that. I'll share it here on the podcast. Man, it got to be a weird feeling when Joe Montana recognizes you out in public.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was like, wow. But that whole thing with them and wrestling was because of John and his relationship. My older brother and my younger brother. We all have the same mother, and we each have a different father.
Mm.
My older brother, Mike, whose given name at birth was Albert, his dad was Al Galinto.
That name is familiar.
He's an older pro wrestler, and that my mother married him and had a child, like by the time she was 18, and I think that's how she may have gotten into wrestling herself. I'm not sure, but somewhere along the way, after that, she met my biological father, whose name was Ted Wills. And Ted Wills was a professional singer. he was like, he was a regular on there was an old TV show called the Tennessee Ernie Ford Show. And Tennessee Ernie Ford was back in the day, a very famous singer. And, my dad sang in a quartet. He sang solo and what have you. Yeah. And I had when my mother married, when they divorced, when my mother and he had divorced, and my mother told me, she said, your dad, Ted, or Teddy, they called me Teddy, was not a bad guy. She said, he had so much talent, and he was just waiting for it to drop in his lap. And says, out there in Hollywood, you have to run after it. You have to chase it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to seek it out. And she said he didn't do that. He was just waiting for it to happen. And she says, I couldn't take it anyway. And then so she goes to wrestling, and somewhere along the way, she met Mike DiBiase, and they found out that they basically went to the same grade school at different times, and practically lived, within 12 or 15 blocks of each other, and never met.
You mentioned CM Punk there. Did you hear the big news about him? He just returned to the WWE over the weekend here at Survivor Series.
Wow. I missed it.
Man, huge wrestling news. I mean, he left on really bad terms about 9 years ago in 2014 and went to AEW, had some trouble there behind the scenes. He got into, actually, I think it was 2 separate fist fights, altercations backstage, and that spelled the end of his time there. And he's gotten this reputation as being a guy who's polarizing and hard to deal with behind the scenes, and nobody thought that he was going to make his return. And much like guys like Goldberg and the Ultimate Warrior, he did make his return to WWE. Let's just hope he can keep it between the lines, backstage, right?
Well, and again, the only thing, I don't know anything about CM Punk's personality or any of that. I am strictly talking about his work. And his work is really good. And it's a lot like, and of course, I didn't realize it, but one of my mentors, Terry Funk, had poured into him some. I mean, he actually came to Terry's funeral.
Wow.
It's like, wow, I didn't know that they had that kind of a relationship. And apparently they did.
And it's interesting you should mention Terry, because that's one of the guys that Punk reminds me of a lot of the time. Is he's got like some Terry Funk kind of realism flavor to his work, and it's interesting seeing him. I'm excited that he's back in WWE. I know that a lot of fans are kind of torn, where they're like, "Oh, this guy's a shit disturber," and some fans are excited he's back. I'm one of the ones who's excited. Let's see what he can do.
Well, the what is it? The squeaky wheel gets oiled.
Yep, it does. And look,
sometimes I think maybe I should have been a little more squeaky.
There's something to be said for it. I mean, look at all the success that Punk has had. Arn Anderson recently had his graphic novel come out called Arn Anderson, My Life as the Enforcer. And in it, he's got a story with illustrations of driving your Trans Am while you were asleep in the back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he says like what a huge thrill it was, because he was a big Smokey and the Bandit fan. And there's you, this veteran wrestler at the time, and he's brand new to the business, and you're allowing him to drive your vehicle. And it was such an impactful part of his career that he decided to include it in his autobiographical graphic novel.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'll have to send you the pictures of it.
That's awesome. But I mean, and I tell you what, Arn became one of the best. He picked it up quick, and and he's kind of been like from the day we met. We were friends, and the friendship just grew, and then is to the same today as ever, actually bigger.
Hey Ted, I did dig up this photo. That's from Arn's graphic novel. So that's the depiction of your Trans Am They don't show you, but if you look closely, you can see that they've got all the Z's in there of you asleep in the back seat.
Oh my gosh, who I can't read that. Who's the guy in the middle?
That is young Arn Anderson depicted in the middle there.
Ah, I see.
Yep. Yeah, it's hard to read from here, but look, it's worth checking out. If you guys are just listening to us, go to our YouTube page to check this that image out, and go support Arn Anderson. Go pick up that graphic novel of his.
And you know that I loved that car. Oh my gosh, I call it my Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am. It looked just like the Trans Am that who was it?
Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds drove in Smokey and the Bandit. And oh my gosh, did I put some miles on that car, and I'll tell you what, that baby would jump up and go. Yeah, I got a few tickets.
Do you remember what became of it?
I ended up trading it, and you know, and even now I go, gosh, you know, why didn't I just keep that car? I mean, like, you know, I mean that it's like. I mean, I see them every now and then. I'll see one that's like it or close to like it or whatever, and you know, it's like, you know, it's like they've never lost their popularity.
No,
in my opinion, they're as popular today as they were back in the whatever that year was.
They're timeless, man, because of the movie, Burt Reynolds and how cool he was in that. And yeah, man, it's that's a pretty badass car that you own there.
There's a book that was written, and I can't remember who the author is, but it was called The Heels. Did you ever notice that book?
No, but hang on, I'll look it up.
I'd like to, you know, I want to, because there's all these different guys that were heels in the wrestling business. And it kind of pissed me off because the only time I'm mentioned in there is when they're telling my dad's story.
That is a travesty. As you know, we've discussed it here on the
show. And there are other heels in this book who couldn't lace my boots. And so I would like for whoever wrote that book to get this message. You know what? You did a pretty good job, but when you can leave me out of it, I think there's a whole lot of people, including Vince McMahon, that said you blew it.
The one that I'm finding right now is called Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, The Heels. And it was written by Greg Oliver and Steven Johnson. Is that ringing a bell for you?
That would have to be the one. I can't think of another one.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a few books that, you know, include like Wrestling's Heels and Heroes and things of that nature, but this is the one, you know, that's called The Heels. So I think that must be the one. But yeah, no, I mean, you know, you and I have discussed it here on the show before. It's like, you know, I don't know that anybody's had a heel run like the one that you had, at least not on the same stage as big a stage as you were on. So yeah, no, I mean, for you to be left out of that is
well, and again, why was I on that stage so long?
Because you were great at it.
You know, I don't often, and I don't want to blow my own horn, you know, but when you had a career, you know, the length of mine, and, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know. There are people who I run into, and they'll hear somebody talk to me or something, and they just said, well, so you were a wrestler? I said, yeah. And I said, well, what was your wrestling name? And I said, you know, they called me the $1 Million Man. Oh, you were that guy. They don't know anything about wrestling, but they remember that guy. They remember that name.
Yep. Nobody did it on, as I said, like nobody had the mainstream stage. You're the greatest mainstream heel of all time, in my opinion. And I can back that up too, because my wife is not a wrestling fan, But the first time you and I talked, you were with Jake, and Jake handed you the phone, and you got on the phone with me, and we started talking about doing a podcast. I got off the phone, and my wife was like, "Who was that?" And I said, "That was $1 Million Man," and she knew exactly who I was talking about. And she's not a wrestling fan. Yeah, so I mean, it really speaks to how badly, if it is this Greg Oliver guy, which I don't know if it is or not, how badly he missed the boat here whenever it comes to talking about the greatest heels of all time.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's I don't know. I guess like almost insulting, or just like wow, you know, to be able to get all of these different, and that's, I don't.
Yeah, we won't bury the guy anymore.
I'm not going to talk about it anymore.
We
I
won't bury him.
got it off my chest.
$1 Million dreams, tell them all good night. Everybody's got a pod, everybody's got a price. DBS.